Zara knew one thing with absolute clarity. Being human in a galaxy full of predators was exhausting. It wasn't the assassination attempts, the occasional poison in her drink, or the accidental airlock malfunctions that bothered her. Those she could handle. She'd grown up on a world where everything with teeth had tried to eat everything else with a pulse. Danger was familiar, almost comforting. What wore her down was the misunderstanding in the galactic community. Human translated less as person and more as "oh stars. That thing will kill you." To most non-human species, she wasn't a technician or an officer or even a colleague. She was an apex predator wrapped in a humanoid shape, walking around like a loaded weapon someone had forgotten to disarm. Everywhere she went, instincts flared, stares followed her down corridors. Conversations broke off mid-sentence as she approached. Some species froze completely, pupils blown wide. Every muscle locked in the universal posture of prey trying not to attract attention. Others simply abandoned the space entirely, leaving her standing alone in mess halls, training chambers, even lifts. She had learned to ignore it. Usually. Today, it grated. The Galactic Training Academy on Vorta 5 was supposed to be a place of learning and collaboration, a polished jewel of crystalline towers and bioluminescent gardens floating in orbit above a quiet blue world. From space, it looked serene. From the inside, Zara knew better. Underneath the glowing walkways and mirrored windows, the academy was a pressure chamber. Predator-descended species trying to coexist with prey-descended ones. Militaries, scientists, diplomats, all trapped in the same rotating station. All terrified of offending the wrong species. In the wrong way at the wrong time. And then someone had thought it would be a brilliant idea to assign a human her to the predator. Behavioral Studies Unit. Zara tightened the cuff on her work glove and adjusted the settings on her tool console. The glow from the interface reflecting off the maintenance bay bulkheads. Behind her, a dozen cadets clustered near the far wall for their mandatory observation exercise. They were all young, some still sporting the mottled patterns of adolescence, others short and soft. Horns not yet fully grown, antennae twitching with anxiety. She didn't look at them. She didn't have to. She could hear them. "Is that her?" one cadet whispered, his voice barely more than a rasp. "Yes," another hissed back. "That's the human. She doesn't look that dangerous. That's the point. They say humans smile before they strike." Zara sighed and kept working, fingers moving smoothly over the console. She tried to focus on recalibrating the enclosure's environmental field, but their whispers slipped under her skin like splinters. Being feared she could handle. Being underestimated, that was harder. To them, she was a paradox, a creature from a world where her species was the top of the food chain, yet assigned to quietly maintain equipment and run behavioral models. They saw her hands fixing emitters and adjusting parameters, and assumed that was the limit of what she could do. They didn't see the years she'd spent tracking the deadliest hunters on Earth, the long hours of study, the countless encounters where a single misstep meant death. They just saw teeth and eyes forward-facing, and thought monster. Not entirely their fault. Zara reminded herself. Humans triggered deep, ancient instincts in nearly every sentient species they met. Even the sophisticated ones, the ones who had moved beyond natural predation and built peaceful star-spanning cultures, still flinched at something in her gait, her posture, her stare. Old prey memories ran deeper than reason. She was about to run a final diagnostic when her wrist comm chimed, shrill and urgent. "Zara," came Dr. Meon's voice, crackling through the channel. "It's happening. The Viper delegation just docked. They've brought cubs." Zara's fingers stilled. Vipers. Her pulse kicked, not with fear, but with sharp focus. The Vipers were one of the most feared predator species in their quadrant, tracer fast, venomous, hyper-adaptive. No one had entirely figured out how to coexist with them without incident. Their evolutionary path had rewarded aggression and territoriality, and though they developed culture, technology, and a sophisticated political structure, those instincts hadn't disappeared. They'd just narrowed. And now they'd brought young. Zara had heard the rumors. Viper cubs were notoriously volatile, curious, intense, prone to testing every boundary in sight. Treat them like pets and they'd tear you apart. Treat them like enemies and they'd remember your scent forever. "Understood," Zara replied. Her voice came out steady, clipped. "On my way." She slid her tools into her bag, sealed it, and strode for the bay exit. The cadets watched her go, a ripple of nervous silence parting around her as though she carried her own gravity well. The corridors to the central observation deck hummed with activity. Lights chased patterns along the walls. The low drone of the station's power systems vibrated through the floor. As she walked, Zara rolled her shoulders back, forcing the tension out of her muscles. She needed to be composed, controlled. Vipers would read any twitch as intent. The observation deck was already crowded when she arrived. Cadets packed the upper tiers, pressed against the transparent barrier that overlooked the docking ring. Instructors stood in small clusters, murmuring among themselves. The air smelled faintly of lubrication oil and ozone, undercut by the sharp tang that always accompanied large, nervous crowds. Near the central airlock stood Commander Alex, a 7-foot-tall Regoian with long, articulated limbs and a thin crest of translucent spines running from his brow to the back of his skull. His people were prey-descended, built for speed and awareness rather than combat. Right now, every inch of his posture screamed, "Do not want." His antennae twitched when he saw Zara. "They're here," he said, voice low. "I don't like this, Meon. Bringing cubs here, to this station?" Dr. Meon, a short, furred researcher with wide, luminous eyes, stood beside him. "We don't have a choice," she said. The Viper delegation insisted. They want to demonstrate their willingness to share cultural practices. The council approved it as a sign of trust. Alex's gaze flicked back to Zara, lingering on the lines of her jaw, the stillness of her stance. He swallowed. Zara pretended not to notice. Instead, she faced the airlock. A hiss sounded as the seal released. The inner doors slid apart. The first Viper through the portal was massive, long, and lithe, gliding rather than walking, its serpentine body supported by concealed grav suspenders woven into its ceremonial robes. Dark, iridescent scales caught the station's light, shimmering in patterns that shifted with each ripple of muscle. A triangular head rose above the gathered assembly, eyes a molten, predatory gold. The Viper Ambassador. He scanned the room, pupils narrowing, tongue flickering once. Tasting the collective fear, his expression barely moved. But Zara recognized the faint curl at the edge of his lip. Satisfaction. Behind him came to smaller forms, each about half his size. Viper cubs. They were beautiful in the way lethal things often were, sleek, fast, every line of their bodies optimized for strike and coil. Their scales gleamed brighter than Zill's, colors not yet darkened by age. They slithered forward with barely contained energy, weaving patterns around one another, their voices hissing excitedly in their own language. The cadets recoiled in a wave. Instincts shouted, snake, venom, danger. Upper tier railings creaked as bodies pressed backward. A few cadets' skin patterns shifted to pale warning colors. One fainted outright, collapsing into a heap. His classmates scrambling to drag him out of the way without taking their eyes off the Vipers. Zara. Dr. Mion's voice snapped her focus back. We need an observational profile on their behavior in the presence of a true predator. They won't respect anyone else. We need you to approach them. Alex sputtered. That's insane. What if they respect her? Mion countered. We've never tested Viper juveniles with a human subject. This might be our only chance under controlled conditions. Controlled, Zara thought, glancing around at the shivering cadets and tense guards. Sure, her heart picked up speed, but she found her center. Fear had its place. It sharpened edges when you didn't let it drive. She nodded once. Understood, she said. She stepped forward. The room reacted as if she'd moved a weapon to the front line. The whispers intensified, becoming a hiss of overlapping languages. Is she going to fight them? They'll tear her apart. Maybe she'll tear them apart. Humans are. She tuned them out. Closer now. She could feel the Viper cub's attention pivot. Their motions altered, coils slowing, bodies lowering in a way that was not submission, but focus. They sensed something. Not prey, not yet threat. Something. Undefined. Zara stopped a few meters away and lowered herself into a crouch slowly, deliberately, making sure every movement was readable, hands visible, center of gravity steady, eyes forward but not locked. The cubs hissed. One darted sideways, circling her, testing angles. The other stared straight at her face, pupils dilating. Zara read challenge in its posture, in the way its tail flicked a young predator demanding to know if the creature before it deserved space, fear, or blood. She let it come. Hey there, Zara said softly, her voice warm but edged with command. You curious? The cub tensed, coiling tighter. Then it lunged. Up in the observation tier. Someone screamed. The cub's body shot forward. Fangs bared, trajectory aimed directly at her throat. Every prey descended being in the room felt the strike pattern and locked up. Zara did not flinch. Instead, she answered with sound. The growl that rose from her chest was low and primal. A vibration pulled from deep in her species' history, from dark forests, from firelit caves, from nights when the only thing between her ancestors and extinction had been teeth and resolve. The sound rolled through the chamber, too low for some ears to consciously pass, but not too low for instincts. The cub hit the air in front of her and froze. Its body hung coiled an arm's length away, muscles trembling, instinct warring with curiosity. That sound said not prey, said dangerous, said older predator here, pay attention. Zara held her ground. Her gaze stayed locked on the cub's eyes, steady, unafraid, not aggressive, but utterly unwilling to yield. The moment stretched. Then the cub blinked. The rigid coil eased. It lowered itself to the floor, tongue flicking out, tasting her scent at this new distance. Slowly, it began to circle her instead of attacking, movements less frantic now, more thoughtful. Respect, Zara thought. Not dominance, not submission, just an acknowledgement written in body language that transcended species. You are real. You are dangerous. You are not to be taken lightly. Zara's shoulders relaxed a fraction. That's it, she murmured, just loud enough for the nearest microphones to catch. You don't attack what you don't understand. You learn it first. The second cub, emboldened, slithered up beside its sibling and brushed lightly against Zara's boot, testing. Its scales rasped faintly against the material. Zara let it. She didn't reach for them, didn't move too fast. She knew better than to crowd an unsure juvenile. From behind them, Ambassador Zil inclined his head, golden eyes gleaming. There was approval there, and interest. Before anyone could say anything more, the station's alarms exploded into life. Red light strobed across the observation deck. A siren howled, drilling through the gathered crowd. Emergency glyphs flared along the walls. Security breach detected. The Station AI's voice announced. All personnel, brace for potential impact. This is not a drill. Panic erupted. Cadets bolted in all directions, clustering toward exits, some frozen in place, others crying out in fear. Instructors shouted, trying to impose order over chaos. The bulkheads vibrated with the shift as emergency systems rerouted power. The Viper cubs reacted instantly. They flared to full threat posture, bodies rising. Hoods opening slightly along their necks where specialized scales shifted. Their fangs extended, gleaming with venom. They whipped around, searching for the source of danger, ready to strike at anything that moved too fast. That included, potentially, the terrified cadets. Zara moved before anyone else. She stepped forward, placing herself between the cubs and the nearest cluster of cadets. Her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Stay close," she ordered, addressing the cubs first, then the room at large. "You're safe." "With me." The cubs hesitated, caught between instinct and the strange, two-legged predator who hadn't backed away even once. Their tongues flicked, tasting her adrenaline, her steadiness, the clear lack of fear. Behind them, Zil's eyes narrowed as he watched Zara's stance shift, not just as a fellow predator, but as something else. Something Vipers respected even more than raw power. Leadership. The alarms continued to blare, but Zara's calm presence carved a bubble of stillness around them. She kept her body loose, not coiled, projecting confidence without aggression. "Look at me," she told the cubs. "Not at them. We face danger together, or not at all." Zil's tongue flickered once. "They listen to you," he said softly, his galactic standard clear but sibilant. They understand intent, Zara replied. Predators always do. Seconds later, a squad of station security officers burst onto the deck, weapons holstered but hands ready. The lead officer glanced at the displays strapped to his forearm, then exhaled sharply. False alarm, he called out. This was an unscheduled simulation. Training systems misrouted the notification flags. There is no attack. Repeat. There is no attack. The sirens cut off. The red lights dimmed, returning to the station's normal soft glow. A ragged collective sigh passed through the chamber. Some cadets collapsed into seats. Others laughed shakily. The kind of brittle sound that only came after your nervous system realized it wasn't about to die. Zara didn't move until she felt the tension ease out of the cubs' bodies behind her. Only then did she straighten and turn back to the room. Dozens of eyes stared at her, not with the usual tight, flinching horror, but with something else. Something quieter. Something that might, if given time, become respect. They fear us because they don't understand us, Zara said, her voice carrying easily in the sudden hush. Fear isn't really about what you can do. It's about what others think you're going to do when everything goes wrong. She let that sink in. I had a choice, she went on. So did they? She gestured lightly toward the cubs, who were now pressed at her side, watching the room with bright, alert eyes. I could have treated them like monsters. They could have treated me like prey. Instead, we decided to stand on the same side when things got scary. Zil glided forward, his long body moving with slow deliberation. He stopped beside Zara and inclined his head, the gesture formal and unmistakable. Today, he said, you have shown my cubs that there are predators who do not hunt the helpless, but guard them. That is a lesson worth learning. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. For the first time since Zara had arrived at the academy, the cadets weren't just staring at her like she was a beast in a cage. Some of them looked thoughtful. A few even looked grateful. And somewhere beneath the adrenaline and fatigue, Zara felt something unfold inside her chest. A loosening she hadn't realized she'd been waiting for. Maybe she wasn't as alone in this galaxy as she'd thought. Later, as the official debrief began and Dr. Meon rattled off observations about cross-species trust, Zara found herself near one of the observation windows. The stars spread out beyond in cold, clear patterns. A small shadow slid up beside her, one of the viper cubs. It brushed its scales against her hand, just once. In what her growing knowledge of their body language told her was the viper equivalent of a tentative nudge of affection. Zara smiled an expression that once would have sent half the room bolting for the exits. This time, no one ran. If Zara's story and her unlikely bond with the viper cubs pulled you in, imagine how many other stories are lurking out there in the dark between the stars where humans, monsters, and everything in between learn what it really means to share a galaxy. Do you think we can ever truly overcome the fears that divide us? Is fear something we erase, or something we learn to live with differently? Share your thoughts, and if you're ready for more tales of humans breaking barriers, defying expectations, and rewriting the rules of the universe, stick around. The journey's just getting started.